Okay. As you will know, these sessions, although licensure will be in the virtual campus, so the students that can connect to the online session will be able to access afterwards. So good afternoon, everyone. This is Albert Sarabia, the person of contact of this master. And today we have with us Dr. Samy Tayie. Let me introduce Samy. He is the chief of the Arab chapter of the UNESCO Media and Information Literacy Alliance and professor at the Faculty of Communication at the Cairo University in Egypt. And he has served as a mediator in conflicts in the Nile Delta. He is the author of several articles and materials on interculturality, media literacy, and educational communication. And he holds a PhD from the Autonomous University of Barcelona with the thesis, News Literacy for Responsible Online News Experience Against Harmful Messages. So if you are okay with this, today what we are going to do is like a first introduction. So the first of all the things that we are going to do is we are going to give you maybe 1 minute, 2 minutes for each one of you, so you can introduce yourselves and talk about your relationship with education and communication and media literacy. So we're going to start maybe by Maya, if you can start by introducing yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Maya. I am American from the United States, but I am currently working as an auxiliary de conversación in Spain. So I am supporting Spanish teachers, introducing kids to American spellings instead of British. So I don't know if that's helpful for them or not, but yeah, this is my second year teaching abroad. The year before that was in Taiwan. And for almost 10 years before that, I was in corporate working on marketing, data science, and just kind of understanding all of that, which is why this was so exciting to me, that the two things that I enjoy. So yeah, I'm very excited to meet you all and learn more.
Thank you, Maya, and welcome to this course. Okay, next one, Lorena, maybe?
Hello, my name is Lorena Grebenishan. I'm from Romania, more precise from Transylvania, from the city Târgu Mureș. I am a psychiatrist at the Mureș County Clinical Hospital. On the other hand, I am an assistant professor at the discipline of psychiatry at the University of Medicine, Pharmacy, Science and Technology, George Emil Palade from Târgu Mureș. I teach psychiatry to 60-year students from the Faculty of General Medicine, which is why I enrolled in this program. I want to improve my communication skills as well as learning methods to bring my teaching activity to a higher level.
Very interesting.
Okay, great, thank you, Lorena. We
Thank
have so
you.
many different profiles for what I see. So, Lucas, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing correctly the name, so if I'm wrong, please, you can correct me. Yeah. You are mute. Yeah, we can hear you. Okay. I think we missed the connection. No. No, Lucas, we can hear you. You have your microphone mute. Well, it's okay, don't worry.
It's okay.
While
It's okay
look
now?
yes.
Yes, okay. Thank you. My name is Emma Lukac. I am also from Târgu Mureș, from Romania, and I am psychiatrist. I teach psychiatry for medical students from the University of Medicine, Pharmacy, Science and Technology in George Emil Parada University in Târgu Mureș. I am colleague with Lorena. I signed up for this master's degree with the desire to develop my communication and linguistic skills for the benefit of my work, and I hope I will learn interesting things.
Yeah, we hope to. We hope you take advantage of this course. And finally, Malak.
Yes. Hi, my name is Malak Abu Zainab. I'm from Lebanon, Beirut, Lebanon, where war is taking place right now. And I studied communication arts, radio, TV, film. I also worked in production and in a TV station as a news reporter and news writer. So, and in the Ministry of Social Affairs with the UNDP on programs for women empowerment. I enrolled with this program because I want to learn more about the education and the academic life. I want to go to this side of to use my skills in education and in academic life. Yeah. That's all.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Malak. Thank you, the four of you. Welcome, officially welcome to the course. This is, as you know, this is the second week of this first module that is about education and communication and what is linked, what is similar between these two apparently different worlds. And today, as you will know, we have Dr. Samy, that is an expert in media literacy, and he will give us this first approach to education and to communication. Welcome, Samy.
Okay, thank you very much, Albert, and I would like to welcome all of you. I think it's a very interesting group, and I think for the psychiatrist, I would need your help.
Yes.
Eventually, we are going to teach you communication, and we need your help to take care of us. We live in a world full of problems and complications everywhere. I mean, we have problems in Latin America, we have problems in Europe with the Ukrainian-Russian war. We have a hell of a problem in Gaza and now in Lebanon, and God knows what's going to happen next. So apparently, we all need the advice of psychiatrists to help us to cope with these problems. Anyway, my name is Samy Tayie, and as Albert just indicated, I am by profession, I'm a professor at Cairo University. At the same time, I am the chairperson of UNESCO's Media and Information Literacy Alliance Arab chapter, and now I'm teaching you Paris now. I'll be in Paris until Wednesday, and then I'll go back to Cairo on Wednesday. Then in a week's time, I'll go back to Barcelona. So you may consider me a kind of a global citizen, So wherever I go, I belong. Okay. Now let me. I don't want to be heavy on you today, but I'm going to give you a brief introduction about the term communication. When we say communication, we can confirm that communication is an important characteristic of all human beings. And any human being cannot do or cannot live without communication. And when we talk about human communication, we have two types, or we can distinguish two types of communication. Initially, or firstly, we have what we call the verbal or linguistic communication. Then we have what we call non-verbal or non-linguistic communication. The first type of communication is usually the communication which occurs using the language, whether it is a spoken language, whether it is a written language, audio language, visual language. So whenever you have a language, whether it is written or spoken, this is what we may call a verbal or linguistic communication. On the other side, we have what we call paralanguage or non-verbal or non-linguistic communication. And this is the type of communication which relies mainly on what we may call the movement of body. When I talk to you now, I'm moving, using my hands, right? You have some kind of facial expressions. So whatever I use in terms of body language is what we may consider the non-linguistic or non-verbal or the body language communication. So these are the two important types of communication: verbal or linguistic communication and non-verbal or non-linguistic communication. These what we are mainly concerned with in our study, the two types of communication. Then I'm going to talk to you next about what we call levels of communication. What are the different levels of human communication? When we talk about levels of human communication, we can talk about 6 levels of human communication. We can say that we have 6 levels of human communication. The first one, I'm going to mention them. I'll list them first, and then I'll say a few words about every and each one of these levels. The first level of human communication is what we call the intrapersonal communication. Intrapersonal communication. The second level is what we call interpersonal communication. The first one is RA, intra, and the second one is ER, interpersonal communication. Then the third level of communication is what we call group communication. And the fourth level is what we call intergroup communication. Then we have the fifth level is what we call organizational or institutional communication. And finally, on top of the pyramid, we have what we call mass communication. Okay? So when we talk about communication, we may talk about one of these levels. Let me say a few words about every and each one of these levels. The first level is what we call intrapersonal communication. What do you mean by intrapersonal communication? It is the communication between the man and himself. I mean, when you think, when you try to understand what I'm saying, this is what we call intrapersonal communication. So therefore, the intrapersonal communication is the level of communication which includes all psychological processes which occur inside the human mind. It includes, comprehension, thinking, or dreaming, or imagining something. All these psychological processes are considered to be intrapersonal communication. So intrapersonal communication is a communication between a man and himself. Here we have the man is a communicator and the receiver and everything. Then when we move to the second level, which is interpersonal communication, okay, now we have a communication between two persons. And sometimes we call it face-to-face communication because it relies on the face. So when a communication occurs between two persons, this is what we call the interpersonal communication. It is the communication between a man and another man, and usually sometimes we call it face-to-face communication because it relies on the on the physical existence of the two persons. Maybe some of you will ask me, what about chatting between two persons? What about phone calls? Okay, we can call these kind of interpersonal communication. We have a term for it. It's called machine-assisted interpersonal communication. Here we do not rely on the face-to-face, but here we have a third factor, which is a machine, whether a mobile phone or whatever. So this is what we may call a machine-assisted interpersonal communication. Then we move to the third level, which is intra-group communication. And this is a communication which occurs, okay, among individuals of one group. For example, when you communicate to each other, when you write to each other or talk or whatever, and you are one group, you have some common objectives, you have some common interests, and you are all here to study and to know more about it. So I can call you a group. So when you communicate each other, when you talk to each other, this is what we may call the intra-group communication. And of course, when we define a group is some individuals, any number between 3 up to 1,000. And this group, when they communicate with each other, we can call it the intra-group communication, right? So the definition of group is 3 persons or more. And these 3 persons or more, they must share or they must have a lot of things in common, objectives, interests, etc. So these are what we may call group. And, when they communicate with each other, that's what we call intra-group communication. Then if we move to the 4th level of communication, which is what we call intergroup communication. What do we mean by group communication? It is a level of communication which occurs between 2 groups or more. When, for example, when you were undergraduate students, I think you must have experienced what we call the competition. They bring a group of students from the College of Medicine, not necessarily specialized in psychology or psychiatrist, but they bring a group of students from Faculty of Medicine, another group from Faculty of Engineering. When they have a kind of competition among these different groups, that's what we call the intergroup communication. Therefore, the intergroup communication, it is a communication which occurs between 2 groups or among 3 or 4 or 5 groups, right? Then if we move to the 5th level of communication, the 5th level of communication is what we call organizational or institutional communication. And it's clear from the name, okay? Organizational or institutional, it is the communication which occurs inside the organization or the institution. How come? And here we can distinguish 2 forms of these organizational or institutional communication. We have one form which we may call vertical communication, and then we have another form which is called horizontal communication. As you all know, inside any organization or any institution, we have the director or the chairperson. When he communicates with his employees, we call it vertical communication. Also, when they communicate with the boss or with the director, we call it also vertical communication. So the communication which include orders from the director to the employees, or reports and recommendation from the employees to the director or to the chair of the organization. This is what we call vertical communication. Also, inside or within the organization, we have another form of communication, which is what we call horizontal communication. And horizontal communication, as you can see from the name, it's a communication between 2 employees at the same level, 2 students at the same level, 2 professors at the same level. This is what we call horizontal communication. So therefore, when we talk about organizational or institutional communication, we can easily distinguish 2 forms, vertical and horizontal. Then let me move now to the top of the pyramid and the last level of communication, which is what we call mass communication. And let me remind you, when we talk about mass communication, we talk about a dynamic process. And this dynamic process, it goes in a circle. And that's why we call it dynamic. And this dynamic process, it has got 4 important elements. So when we talk about mass communication, we talk about, the inclusion of 4 important elements. The first element is what we call the communicator or the source or the sender. And the second element is what we call the message. The third element is what we call the media or, sorry, the channel or the medium. And finally, we have what we call the receiver or the audience. These are the four important elements in a mass communication process. And of course, we have another element, which is a secondary element. It is called feedback. Feedback, it means the information coming from the audience or from the receiver to the communicator. Let me say a few words about every one of these four elements. The communicator is a person, we call it the communicator or the sender or the source. He's a person, he has some kind of information, and he would like to send this information to the audience, to the very end of the dynamic process. What should he do? He put this information in a kind of a message, right? He encode this information, and this message could be an article, a news story, a TV program, a radio program, or whatever. That's what we call the message. And then in order to send this message to the receiver or the audience, he needs to use a channel. He needs to choose what we call a communication technology. Okay? In order to transfer this information to the receiver or to the audience. And here I'm going to stop for a while on the media or the channel. What do you mean by the medium? The medium, it is a technological tool which we can rely on in order to transfer the information or to transfer the message from the communicator to the audience or to the receiver. When we talk about the medium, we can easily distinguish two categories of media. We can easily distinguish two categories of media. The first one is what we call the traditional media. Category number one is what we call traditional media. Then we also have what we call non-traditional or digital media. When I talk about traditional media, of course, what I mean here, we mean mainly three categories, three important types of traditional media. We have the print media, we have radio, and we have television. These are what we call the traditional media. Let me say a few words about every and each one of these media. When we talk about the print media, it includes a wide range of media, such as newspapers, such as magazines, posters, flyers, etc. So when we talk about the print media, we talk about a very wide range of media. And when we talk about the print media, we can say that the print media is considered to be the oldest media on earth. The oldest media on earth. Do you know when the print media was discovered? Can you try to tell me something? Huh? When was the print media introduced for the first time?
Are you talking about like the printing press or earlier?
No, I'm talking about the print media in general. When was it introduced?
They used to draw on the stones, maybe.
It was cuneiform?
Yeah. Sorry, Maria?
Cuneiform? It was Babylonian. They used the lines to make.
Okay, let me tell you something. Which the first ever print media. The print media was introduced for the first time. You know how many years ago? Give me a guess. More than 7,000 years ago.
1,000 years, yeah.
More than 7,000 years ago. Of course, I believe it was very early. Of course, it was before you were all born. So I think the first form of print media, it took the form of sculptures, and that was in the ancient Egyptian civilization. So the pharaohs, that's in, I don't say that because I'm originally from Egypt, but it is in the literature. In the literature, you know, they say that the first form of print media was discovered in the very old days, 7,000 years ago, and it took the form of drawings, sculpture on the walls, and rocks. Because at this time, they did not have inks, they did not have papers, and they did not have a proper language. So the ancient Egyptian relies on a language called the hieroglyphic language, right? And this hieroglyphic language, it did not have an alphabetic system, but it used to take the form of, you know, drawings, as you said, as you just mentioned, drawings and, you know, something signs and birds and this and that. At the same time, in Latin America, sorry, in Central America, there were also what we call the Maya tribes. These are the old Indians who were living in Latin America. And these Maya tribes also, they had a similar hieroglyphic language, and they were also, you know, doing some kind of sculpture. So that was the very early age of the print media. And then by the year 2500 before Christ, these are the, I like these dates, you know, these are days to remember, they are very important. By 2500 before Christ, right? Then the Egyptians, they discover what we call the papyrus. Papyrus, you know. These papyrus, they are like, you know, they are like, you know, plants, and they were using them to produce some kind of papers. And these, the discovery of these papyrus, it marks the beginning of what we may call the mobile technology. So the first ever mobile technology was discovered in 2500 before Christ, before we were all were born. And then in Latin America and Central America also, they had some kind of trees. They call them vicus tree, VICKS, vicus. And these vicus, they used to have also big leaves. And the Maya tribes people, they used to use them to write. And that, you know, that marks the beginning of documentation and writing the history. So they were using this papyrus paper to write prescriptions and to register movement of stars, rainfalls, harvest time, etc. And the same thing happened also by the Maya tribes. Then what happened next? Then the Chinese, now we move to China. The Chinese, they discovered two important things which helped the development of print media. Number one, they discovered the paper industry, right? And also they discovered, or they introduced, the first ever alphabetic system written language. And if you see the old Chinese language, it was a little bit similar to the hieroglyphic language because it has some kind of structures, etc. So another technological advance which helped the development or the introduction of print media was the Chinese discovery of papers and language. Then from China, the paper industry moved to the Arab Peninsula and then to Egypt by the year now we go to the after Christ. 622, it came from the Arab Peninsula to Egypt, then North Africa, then to Spain. By the 18th century, the Arabs went to Spain and they took with them the paper industry, and then it spread all over. But if we talk about the, you know, the modern or the recent history of the print media, it goes to the, can you tell me the beginning of the recent history of the print media? Did you hear something about Gutenberg? Johanna Gutenberg. Okay, Johanna Gutenberg, he was a German guy, and thanks to him, he discovered what we call the printing technology. So now everything moved from Egypt, from Central America, from China to Europe now. And Johanna, by the middle of the 15th century, he discovered what we call the printing technology. And ever since, we start to see what we call the print media, such as newspapers, magazines, posters, etc. So this is mainly or briefly the history of the print media. And when we talk about the, as I mentioned to you, when we talk about the print media, we talk about newspapers, magazines, posters, flyers, etc. Maybe we'll have a time one day to talk about different types of newspapers, different types of magazines, which may take maybe a long time, a few hours to talk about, you know, the different types of newspaper and different types of magazines. But maybe eventually I'll ask Albert to give me the time to do a seminar about the different types of the print media. That was the first, you know, type of print media, media, which is print media. Then we have also radio. Radio is another traditional media, right? Radio was introduced for the first time when? Do you remember or not?
Yeah, 1880, 80s, maybe.
No. Okay, radio was introduced for the first time in 1920. 1920. You know, quite a very long time. You know, we can say that the print media, they have the longest lifespan. They stayed with us for many, many years. And then radio was discovered for the first time in 1920, and that was in the States. It was mainly used to announce the presidential election. It was in a city called Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania. Maybe Maria, you know about that. It was in the city of Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania, and it was used mainly. The first ever broadcasting was to announce the presidential elections. Then 15 years later, 19, now we can see that the discovery of new media is coming faster and faster. 16 years later on, by the year 1936, television was introduced, and here TV was introduced by the British Broadcasting Corporation. And then it continues from 1936 until 1939, and then it stopped because of the eruption of World War II, and then it resumed again in 1945 after the end of World War II. And that was, these were mainly the three important, you know, traditional media. We call them traditional because now we have new media, we have digital media, etc. Now, if I move to the second category, which is digital media, two important discoveries, right? The first one is what we call the discovery of computer. And computer was discovered for the first time in 1946. The first ever mainframe computer was discovered in 1946. And then the computer went through three important development stages. Then by the year 70s, we could see what we call the personal computer, the PC. And then by the end of the 80s, we could see what we call the lap computer. That was the first discovery. Then the second discovery, which helped the development of digital media, was the discovery of the internet. And as you all know, the internet was discovered for the first time in 1969, and it was discovered in the States. And the internet initially was mainly used for military purposes. And a network called ARPANET, it was hosted by the Pentagon, and it was mainly used for military purposes. It was the first ever internet. Then after that, during the 70s and 80s, the internet was, was becoming very common all over the world. And then we can distinguish three important stages of the development of the internet. The first one, the use of the internet for military purposes. Second, during the late 70s and early 80s, the internet was used for scientific purposes. And at that time, the internet was a kind of encyclopedia, a source, a very huge source of data and information about everything. Then by the early 90s, it marks the commercial use of the internet. And then by the year 1990, then we started to see two types of company, the internet access providers and the internet service providers. And then by the turn of the 21st century, we start to talk about what we call the social media and etc. So I hope I have not been long for you, and just wanted to give you a kind of panorama or a kind of brief introduction about communication. What does it mean? What are the different types of communication? What are the different levels of communication? What are the different communication media? I would like to thank you for your attention and for listening, and maybe you can give a few minutes in case you would like to ask a question or something. If time allows, Albert. Do we have time
Yeah,
for?
of course. Yes, yes. Thank you, Samy,
Yeah.
for this wonderful introduction about communication and media. But yes, please, if you have some questions, now is the time. Yes, Maya? Yes.
I just want to make sure that I got the timeline right. So you said in the 1990s it was commercial internet use. In the 2000s it was what? It wasn't social media.
It was the beginning of the introduction of the social media, you know.
Ah, it was, okay.
Now in 2004 we saw the introduction of Facebook and you know, of course, about that and everything. So the you know,
Yeah.
the turn of the 21st century, it marks the beginning of social media. Before that, the internet was mainly used, before the turn of the 21st century, the internet was mainly used as a communication tool for emails and that. But by the turn of the 21st century, we saw the stage of interactivity. And, you know, now we can communicate each other, we can exchange videos and photos and everything. Now,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Samy. Do you have any other question or maybe comment you would like to share with the group or something? Yes, yes, Maya, please.
Sorry, one more, and maybe this is going to be touched on later.
No, please go
but,
ahead, please. Yeah.
I'm kind of curious to know, is there an additional, now that we've seen another decade, 2 decades from the early 2000s, is there now another phase that we've entered that it feels like social media has changed quite a bit from the days of early Facebook?
Now, you know, Maria, now we talk about the AI, artificial intelligence. Now we
okay.
we live the crazy time of AI, where everything's, you know, we can imitate you, Maria. we can imitate your voice and your picture and everything. Now we are, you know, the communication technology is driving us actually crazy, you know. They say by the turn of by late last century, they talk about the mobile phone. They say, oh, mobile phone is going to expand. Let me tell you a fine story. When I was doing my PhD in England during the 80s, I have a couple of PhDs, one from England, from Leicester, and the other one from Sorbonne, from France. And I remember when I was doing my PhD during the 80s, and my family was living in Cairo. And then when they want to call me, they will go to the post office, and they will book a phone call for 18 pounds, which was a lot of money at the time. And they will call me for 3 minutes. Yeah. And they have to wait for a month in order to receive these phone calls from my family. But nowadays we go everywhere, and we have this little thing in our hands, you know, mobile phone. Thanks for this technology. But at the same time, Maria, you have to be careful. We have also the negative sides of new technology, of digital. We have the negative types of the AI. So we don't know where are we going. God knows where are we going, you know. It's a hell of a way.
Yeah. everyone was very excited about it at the companies I worked, and it was cautionary tale.
Now Maria, you have what we call the, the ChatGPT, you have this technology, which you can, which is, again, something else,
Mhm.
Anyway, I think I was very happy to have this kind of short introduction about communication with you, and I hope that I will be able to meet you once more in a more, in a proper lecture for maybe for a couple of hours or
Yeah.
so, and then talk about different issues. I would like to thank you.
Yeah,
And thank,
and
yeah.
thank you, Samy. Yeah, I was going to say that all the concepts you explained, we will go deeply in the following weeks. We will talk also about education theories, about also technology, of course, ChatGPT and AI, yes, and about all those concepts that will be explained more in the following weeks in the forums and also in the independent reading weeks. Also, girls, if you had some question about this course, about the reading, about the virtual campus, anything you like to know, we can take this time also to maybe answer some of these questions. And if not, we will call it an afternoon.
No, thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so if everything's fine, you have also the forum to in the virtual campus to contact with us or the directly through mail. And also, we have the group chat in WhatsApp. So anything you need, we are in contact. So thank you again, Samy, for this first session. Thank you all for connecting to this first Zoom of this master's degree. And we will see you at the end of the month with the second session. Thank you very much.
Thank
See
you.
you.
God bless you.
Thank
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Good afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.